Chapter 10. Poem The Tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. The Tale of Custard the Dragon is an amusing poem written in the form of a ballad. A ballad is a narrative poem in short stanzas, usually having 4 lines. Ballads narrate tales of heroism and courage. This poem also reveals the heroism of a dragon, but it is written in a light vein to show that appearances are deceptive. In its humorous treatment of the subject, the poem resembles a parody. Summary of the poem. The Tale of Custard the Dragon narrates the story of Belinda, her pet dragon called Custard, and a few of her other pets. Belinda lived in a little white house with several pets. She had a black kitten called Ink, a grey mouse called Blink, a yellow dog called Mustard, and a small dragon whom she called Custard. She possessed a red-colored wagon also. A wagon can also be called a truck. Custard, the dragon, had a very horrifying appearance. It had big, sharp teeth, spikes all over its back, and scales underneath its belly. Its big mouth resembled a fireplace, and the nose looked like a chimney. It also had sharp toes like daggers or knives. But Custard was considered to be a coward by Belinda as well as her other pets, as he is always wished to be enclosed in a nice and safe cage. Belinda, as well as her other pets, claimed to be very brave and bold. Belinda's strength was compared to the ferocity of a barrel full of bears. Her kitten and mouse chased the lions away. Mustard's bravery reminded one of a tiger in a fit of temper. Belinda used to tickle Custard ruthlessly, and the kitten, the mouse, and the dog ridiculed Custard by comparing him with Percival, the brave knight of King Arthur, who was renowned for his strength and fighting prowess. Sitting in the red wagon, all of them made fun of this dragon. Suddenly, their fun was interrupted when a bearded pirate with an artificial leg climbed into the White House. They all were startled and shocked to see the intruder with a pistol in each hand and a short, broad sword caught between his teeth. Each one of those present in the room was terrified. Belinda turned pale and cried for help. Mustard ran for his life. Ink fled into the basement, and Blink hid himself in a rat hole. Custard, on the other hand, faced the crisis very boldly, and lashing his tail, he charged at the pirate. Absolutely frightened by this fierce assault, the pirate drank a few mouthfuls of grog, which is an alcoholic drink that he was carrying. He then fired 2 shots at Custard, but in his nervousness he missed his aim. Custard did not spare him. He ate up the whole of the pirate's body. There was a great rejoicing in the White House. Belinda embraced Custard, and the other pets also started celebrating. No one bothered about the pirate's death. However, rather than feeling ashamed for their cowardice, Ink, Blink, and Mustard again started boasting of their bravery. They claimed that they could have been braver than Custard had they not been unnerved by the sudden turn of events. Ignoring their bragging, Custard admitted that everyone was braver than him. Belinda continues to live in her White House along with her pets. Ironically, they still claim to be brave and full of courage. Custard, too, continues his demand for a nice and safe cage. Theme of the chapter. The theme of the poem is that appearances are deceptive. The assessment of people about themselves and others is not always true. This hard fact has been brought forth in the poem through the narrative in which Belinda and her pets Ink, a kitten, Blink, a grey mouse, and Mustard, a yellow dog, have a poor opinion of Custard, the dragon, who is ridiculed as a coward. However, the true characters of Belinda and all her pets prove to be contrary to their claims when they have to face a pirate who is carrying 2 pistols and a sword. It is only Custard, the dragon, who gives a fierce fight to the pirate and rescues the so-called brave Belinda and her pets. Message of the chapter. The poem conveys the message that we must not judge people from how they look, from their appearances, or from their own claims, because appearances usually prove to be deceptive and claims prove to be false. A true evaluation of a person can be made only in times of adversity. Another message the poem gives is that those who are really brave need not boast of their bravery. Their mettle is proved only when they encounter a dangerous situation. Title of the chapter. Custard is the central character of the story narrated in this ballad. The views and activities of the rest of the characters of the story are related to those of the dragon through contrast. Hence, the poem has appropriately been titled The Tale of Custard the Dragon. The title also gives a clue that the poem is full of wit and humor because the name Custard is quite funny for a ferocious animal like a dragon. There is also a hint that it is going to be a narrative poem. The usage of the word tale indicates that it is going to be a ballad. Rhyme scheme of the chapter. The poem consistently follows the same rhyme scheme in all the stanzas, that is A, B, B, except for the last but 2 stanzas, that is stanza 13, which is a 6-line stanza with the rhyme scheme A, B, B, C, C. Literary devices used in the chapter. Alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. It creates a musical effect and enhances the pleasure of reading a literary work. For example, Belinda lived in a little white house. Here, the sound L has been repeated. Another example would be, Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. Here, the B sound has been repeatedly used. Another example would be, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. We find the repetition of H sound. With a clatter and a clank. Here there is repetition of k and l sounds. He gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. G sound has been repeated in this line. Let's move on to another literary device, simile. A simile is a figure of speech that makes a comparison, showing similarities between two different things. Unlike a metaphor, a simile draws resemblance with the help of words like or as. Therefore, it is a direct comparison. Examples: and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard. Here, the poet compares Belinda's dog with mustard because of its sharpness, as mustard seeds have sharp, pungent taste. Another example would be mouth like a fireplace. Here, the mouth of Custard the dragon is compared to a fireplace or a furnace. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. Belinda's bravery is being compared to that of a group of bears. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage. Here, the bravery of Mustard, the dog, is compared to the bravery or ferociousness of a tiger in anger or rage. Snorting like an engine. The loud sound of snorting made by Custard is compared to the sound of an engine. Clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. The tail of the dragon is compared to the chains in prison. He went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. The attack of Custard on the pirate is compared to that of the bird robin on a worm. Let's move on to the metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that is used to make a comparison between two things that aren't alike, but do have something in common. Unlike a simile, where two things are compared directly using like or as, a metaphor's comparison is more indirect, usually made by stating something is something else. A metaphor is very expressive. It is not meant to be taken literally. Examples: chimney for a nose. Here, the poet compares the dragon's nose with a chimney because it jutted out sharply like a chimney. Please note that the words like or as have not been used here. Another example would be and Relio Trulio daggers on his toes. Here, the poet compares the sharp nails on the toes of the dragon to daggers without using like or as. Moving on, repetition. Poets often repeat single words or phrases, lines, and sometimes even whole stanzas at intervals to create a musical effect, to emphasize a point, to draw the reader's attention, or to lend unity to a piece. Examples: the word little has been used 6 times in stanza 1. Let's look at some examples. The word little has been used 6 times in stanza 1, 3 times in stanza 2, and 6 times in stanza 13 to emphasize that the White House of Belinda and all its inmates was small in size. It also makes the lines musical and lyrical. Another example would be, Belinda tickled him, she tickled him unmerciful. Here, the repetition of tickled shows the repeated action of tickling. Another example: pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right. Here, the repetition of pistol emphasizes that the pirate was well armed. The repetition lends a rhythm and musicality to the line. In the last stanza, as brave as is used twice to mock at the false bravery of Belinda and Mustard. Suddenly they heard a nasty sound. The word suddenly has been repeated to emphasize that the sound heard by everyone was sudden and unexpected. The self-coined words realio and trulio have been repeated 4 times. The first and the fourth stanzas appear at the end of the poem once again, with change in the tense to show that life still goes on without any change for Belinda and her pets. However, the repetition has irony underlying it as it emphasizes the incorrigible nature of Belinda and her pets. Another literary device is anaphora. Anaphora is a literary device in which the writer repeats the same beginning of a clause or a sentence, chiefly with the purpose of emphasis on the repeated element, but also to create rhythm in the writing. For example, in stanza 1, lines 3 and 4 begin with and in stanzas 2, lines 2 and 3 begin with and the little. Another literary device would be allusion. Allusion means an indirect reference or suggestion. It is a figure of speech in which a passing but significant reference is made to a well-known person, place, thing, or idea of a historical, mythological, cultural, literary, or political significance. It does not describe in detail what the person or thing it refers to. An example of allusion would be ink, blink, and mustard. They rudely called him Percival. Here is a reference to the legendary knight Percival, one of the knights of King Arthur, who was renowned for his strength and fighting prowess. The poet alludes to Percival to mock at the cowardly demand of the dragon for a nice, safe cage. The contrast makes the poem humorous. Another literary device is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, sometimes called echoism, is a figure of speech in which words imitate the sound or sounds they describe. In other words, the sound an onomatopoeic word produces is the meaning it intends to convey. For example, bang, pop, hiss are some onomatopoeic words. Some examples from the text would be, and Blink said weak. Here the poet uses the word weak to describe the sound the mouse makes while giggling. Another example is meowwitch, cried Ink. Meowwitch gives the sense of meowing of a cat. Another one would be with a clatter and a clank and a jangling squirm. The words clatter, clank, and jangling give the impression of a metallic object hitting the floor or another object. Another literary device would be poetic license. Poetic license is a convention that allows a poet to take liberty with language by changing the spellings or violating grammatical rules with the purpose of creating rhymes, lyricism, rhythm, emphasis, or humor. Examples from the text are, and a realio, trulio, little pet dragon. Here, for really, the word coined is realio and trulio is a word which has been coined by the poet by exercising his poetic license for truly. Another example is, for there was a pirate climbing in the window. Here the spellings of window, W-I-N-D-O-W, have been changed to W-I-N-D-A, window, to make it rhyme with Belinda. Another literary device is exaggeration. Exaggeration is a statement that makes something worse or better than it really is. It is used to create humor or to emphasize something. Overstatement is another word that means almost the same thing. Examples from the text are, Belinda giggled till she shook the house. Here the giggling of Belinda is shown to shake the house, which is an overstatement or an exaggeration. Another one would be, and Ink and Blink chased lions down the stairs. Here the bravery of Ink the cat and Blink the mouse is exaggerated, as they are shown to be fearlessly chasing lions. Another literary device is transferred epithet. It is a poetic device in which an adjective is used not with the noun, which it normally qualifies, but with some other noun. For example, but Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Here it is not the cage that is to be safe, but the dragon. The adjective safe is transferred from the dragon to the cage. Another example is, but Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. Here it is Mustard, the dog, who is terrified at the sight of the pirate, not the yelp. The epithet terrified has been transferred from mustard to yelp.